So right now I am in Bogota here with James Aries, a professional skateboarder and person who lives here and also lived in the United States. And I think it would be very interesting to talk to you about life here because I've been here just a few days and it's been so far very wonderful. The weather's a little bit chaotic. It goes up and down. It's a little bit bipolar. You're gonna get like a heat wave and sunburn one moment, and another moment you're like putting on two sweaters because it's cold here. But you've been living here for a very long time.
Yes,
Tell me about your life here and what is your favorite thing about Bogota?
Well, let me tell you, being in Bogota is definitely a great experience. Bogota is one of the few big cities in Latin America, right? So what happens there is that you get to know a lot of cultures, and usually we call it like a small New York, on the sense that everybody's doing something different. Nobody cares how you dress, what you do, where you're going, what type of music you like, you know what I mean? As long as you have a cool vibe and you're down to earth, you will have the best time in your life. Now, regarding the weather, you're totally right. It's crazy, it's insane, and not only because it rains and then it's sunny, but also you gotta keep in mind that we are 2,700 meters above the ocean, right? Therefore, you have the cold, you have the rain, and then you have the sun, but it hits you harder due to that. Now, on the cultural aspect, let me tell you, one of the best cities, definitely in Latin America, I would say is Bogota. We have a big mix of people, not only from Colombia living in Bogota, but also from all over the world. Nowadays, a lot of Americans, Australians, Europeans, Chinese, Japanese are living here. So what that's doing is that it's feeding our culture with diversity. So what's happening right now is that we're just growing and becoming, this huge monster that has all type of cultures, music, and languages.
Yeah. Bogota is the third largest city in all of the Americas, and next is Mexico City and New York City, but it's huge in population, and there's just so much to deal with here. I mean, people from all different cultures, all different backgrounds, they're very open, very smart, wonderful human beings, and I've been just having a wonderful time here, to say the least. But how would you compare Bogota to places in America, and what do you think are the benefits? How does Bogota outperform countries in America?
Well, let me tell you, the big difference that we have, comparing with the States, is that in the States it's easier to make money on the sense that the work, when you work in hours in the States, you get paid more than in Latin America. However, for those of us that live in the States and probably have, we have been Americanized somehow, we come back to Latin America and we make good money. Why? Because we have the culture, the language. So for instance, in the job that I perform, we work in a call center and we work for the United States. So I would say one of the biggest differences, it would be the money side, right? In the other hand, another big difference is that if I compare Colombia, right, with the States, government doesn't control us as much. Why? Because the technology here is not as advanced as yours in one hand. In the other hand, they don't really know all the tricks that the locals know about going, avoiding it for any reason. It doesn't have to be, anything bad like narco traffic or anything like that. But I don't know, for instance, they don't have as much control digitally on social media, on your emails, they're caught behind. In the States, if you compare it, dude, they know where you are, at what time, they know what you're eating, they know how much you make, how much they're taxing you. So I would say that the biggest differences are those two. In one hand, we have the control from the government, right? And in the other hand, we have the money part. But besides that, let me tell you, Bogota is a great city. You can make a good living here, not even having that much money, especially for the quality of the people.
I mean, our audience is going to love the fact that there's less control here because this is getting totally outrageous in America. But also on the other hand, because of course people earn less here if they work here, but also everything is so affordable and it's so much cheaper compared to the States. And it's also has a huge booming medical industry where even I'm coming down here to get my teeth fixed because in America, they charge me 3-4 times as much. Here, I get a huge discount and everything else, just the way of life is a lot simpler, a lot easier, and so much cheaper.
You want to hear something funny? Like nowadays, it became like a lot of people, not only from the States, but from a lot of countries, they're coming down here to get their noses done, their boobies done. It's a matter of fact, I know that a couple months ago, Mr. 69, one of the rappers in the States, he came to Cali, Colombia to fix his teeth. And now I know that Miss Minaj is also coming to do it with Kanye West, believe it or not. They're coming to Cali because, with the amount of money they paid in the States, they come here, they get a plane, they party, and they don't even spend half of it. So definitely a big difference.
And the Colombians love their parties, they love their salsa, they love their nightlife. I mean, even Sunday here, I was out yesterday walking around and they just shut down big parts of the street from cars and people are just walking around, hanging out. Having fun, talking to each other, but there's an aspect of it because I got a lot of messages being like, be careful, you're gonna get pickpocketed, you're gonna get robbed. There's the whole skull pain thing. How would you rank Bogota as far as safety? Because again, I do have to preface, it is a big city. You have a big mix of bad people and good people, but as far as safety, which is a concern for a lot of people, how would you characterize Bogota?
Let me tell you, Bogota, if you say 10 years ago, Bogota was really sketchy. It was like actually dangerous. Nowadays, especially because a lot of people is coming from other countries, they're taking really good care of them. So Bogota is one of the safest place to be. Of course, you can now go to the ghetto, because if you go to the ghetto, and you're a white guy, you're gonna get it. But if you're moving, in the normal areas of the city, you're more than safe. People will be very friendly. They will actually try to speak English just to be emphasized with you and trying to be very friendly. That's all. So security is good in one hand. Also, as you were saying, we love to party. We have the nightlife. And what you were calling right now, when they shut down the streets, that is done on Sundays. It's called La Ciclovia, like the cycle way, to call it somehow. And also they do it every 2 months, 2 nights in a row. So you can do the same thing at night.
It's an awesome feeling and it's an awesome vibe and it's just very kind of like relaxed here. Life seems a lot simpler. I have kind of 2 more questions on this aspect. What about the tax system? If you're a business here, if you're making money, how are the taxes? Are they high? Are they low? Is it are you able to kind of prosper as a business?
Well, as I was saying before, they don't have as much control on us, right? But now they're learning from the big countries, and now they want to start doing it. So they started new rules, new laws in order to start taxing not only the big companies, but also us, But they're not there yet. So definitely a great place to come and start a good business. Besides that, as an American, if you need something that is related with communications, we have a lot of people here that speak English as good as you. You know what I mean? So definitely starting a business here, restaurants, or something for tourism is a great fucking idea.
Do you know the tax rates by any chance? Like how many percentages did they tax you on your income or on a business here?
Well, there are 2 main taxes they have right now, which they're screwing us with, which is the IVA, right? So their taxes 18% of everything we buy, which sucks. But also, since they don't have as much control, you can always go under the table and avoid paying that. That's what we try to do as Colombians. We gotta survive. Besides that, whenever you put money in the bank, they take 4 pesos out of each 1,000 pesos that you put in there. So if you look at it that way, it seems to be very little. However, if you put a lot of money, then they're taxing you a lot with that and the other tax, right? Then if you have a company, they will tax you with some other stuff. But again, we Colombians, we got the malicia indígena, right? And then we always find a way.
Yeah, Latin Americans always find a way, whether it's Mexico or every place I've been to, a lot of them are like, oh, we find a way.
we definitely always find it. And I mean, and it's just about that, you know what I mean? They always try to control, they always try to make you move their way, but we always find a way not to do it. Because, I mean, who likes to be controlled at all times?
Exactly. And that's why I think one of the reasons why Colombia is prospering, and this is kind of my last question, where do you see Bogota, where do you see Colombia going? Because everyone, whether it's financial experts or even just tourism-wise, we're seeing great things said about Colombia. How do you see the future unfolding here?
I'm gonna tell you something, not only Bogota, but I will talk for the entire country. I think that soon enough, I can now tell you 5, 10, 15 years, but this is gonna be one of the main countries to be. Why? Colombia has all the weathers that you can find, going from snow to the beaches, right? Besides that, we have more fruits than any other country in the planet. Besides that, we have gold, we have platinum, we have everything, right? So it's a matter of time for us to get there and for the fucking government to stop robbing us, because I'm sorry, this is a rich country, but it seems to be poor because let's say they're gonna build, a highway, or they're gonna build a fucking bridge. They steal 50 to 60% of the budget on every single one. So once that stops, that has to stop soon enough, plus everything that I just told you is gonna make this country one of the best places to live. I mean, we have all the nature, we have the animals, we have the mountains, we have the fruits. We got it all, baby.
It definitely does seem like it. Thank you so much, brother, for all the time and excellent insight. Is there anything else you'd like to say or promote, or where people could find you?
Well, guys, let me tell you, whenever you want to come down to Latin America, remember that we are very friendly people, we have big hearts, and we have the best food ever.
Yes. I could attest to that. Beautiful, amazing people, amazing time here in Colombia, and stay tuned for more reports down here and more information about living down here as an expat. Thank you again so much for watching. What was your name?
Rick.
Rick. Rick, tell me your story. Did you live in America before? Did you come down here? And tell us your journey to Bogota, and how did you find your way here?
Okay, so basically, well, my mom was from the States. Well, actually is from the States. She's from San Francisco. She got here to Colombia because my grandfather was a military diplomat for the United States, right? So when he came here, he fell in love with Colombia, and he started out being the first contingency group that was in the Colombian Navy. So he was actually the first guy to command the freight that went to the Korean War. That was commanded by my grandfather, right? So when he came here, he went to Cartagena, and he loved Cartagena. Have you been to Cartagena? Okay, Cartagena is beach, beautiful, pristine everywhere, That's where most Americans, or North Americans, because there's a difference, right? Everybody says, in the States, they say, oh, we're American. But North, Central, and South America, we're all American. But we're North American, Central American, and South American. So when he came here, he loved the spot, right? He took over, he just stayed here, and he brought all the family here to Colombia, right? And then my dad was like the maverick of its time. So he fell in love with my mom, which was like a white blonde chick, right? My dad was this little short, kind of brown dude. And they got together, and then from then on, it was like we were here all the time, but my dad also got a bunch of diplomatic jobs. So we used to go outside to the world, basically. I lived 2 times in the United States, once when I was 7 to 9, and then when I was 12 to 13. No, when I was 12 to 14, and then by 15, I was living in Spain for about a year, then came back and just stayed here.
How would you compare life in America to life here in Bogota?
Well, I would say that there's a couple of things. There's pros and cons, right? I mean, life in the States, I would say it's easier because you got a lot of, I would say, things that the government does for you. In Colombia, you don't have that. But that gives you also an advantage because it makes you be tough, This is a university of life. If you graduate here, I mean, people say that if you make it in New York, you make it anywhere. No, sir. If you make it in Colombia, you make it anywhere, right?
Yeah, that was definitely well said. But as far as government, a lot of the viewers, especially our viewers, don't like government. They don't like high taxes. How is the government here? How are the taxes here? How is life here? Are they letting people live? Are they letting business prosper? And how do you see that going?
Well, I do see certain sectors that are coming up, other sectors that are coming down, but that's also an opportunity because when you know that in Japanese, the word for crisis doesn't exist. The word for crisis means opportunity, and that's the way Colombians see ourselves, right? We ourselves see us like in a country that's really rich. We got 2 oceans, we got everything going on. But the government isn't in line, is sort of in line with the American government or the North American government, which is something that we hate. Because right now we're under Uribe's still with this humongous shadow that he cast all around Colombia, and we're still living in that sense. We can't say that Uribe did everything wrong, but he did a lot of things wrong, right? The one thing that he has done was he took out a lot of the FARC and the guerrillas and a lot of the warfare that was going on here because we've been in civil war for almost 60 years, Not a lot of people know that, right? But what happened was, right then and there, when he basically finished off with what he had to do, he could have left being a hero. But, you know, like the Joker says, he stayed long enough to become the villain, right? So that was the thing, right? But right now, I do believe, like, I've seen in New York Times that we're rated as, like, the second most visited country, or, like, the second most wanted to be visited country in the world, right? And I do believe that it's the time to Colombia to shine, right? I do also believe that the government is not doing enough to, like, protect our resources, because we have two oceans. We have oil that could be turned into gasoline, and we got everything going. But, like, for example, we have cheap gasoline prices compared to the States, but we're producers, right? So if we're producers, we should have a much lower rate of gasoline, right? But we don't, right? I think all of these things are coming together because a lot of Colombians are coming together as a group, you know, young people, old people that are tired of the establishment and they want to do a real change. They had the opportunity to do so because we just elected a new president. But we all think that that had to do a lot also with the corruption that we live here, because, I mean, here we cannot, like, we cannot lie about what we are, about what we do, because that would be disrespectful for everybody else, right? We understand here that we have a lot of issues, but we're also working on them, because at the end of the day, the people that live in Colombia were rated like the happiest people in the world. But there's a reason for that, because we look at the positive, we look at the bright side. We have, like, for example, in the U.S., you guys have 4 U.S. national holidays. Here in Colombia, we got almost close to 38, right? So it's like another month off vacation, you know? We love to party, we're like down-to-earth people, and we know we got a bad rep because of all the drug trafficking that went on back in the 80s and the 90s, and that sort of stigma has been brought back to us with series like Netflix, like Narcos and all that. What people actually don't know about Narcos is that it's actually 60% fiction and 40% the truth. What happened was way, way worse. And a lot of people tend to, like, look up to these sort of people that were just hurtful for our image, right? And we do have an issue, we do have problems, but that's just like 1% of the population. If you're gonna judge a whole population for just its 1%, then we have an issue, because we could do the same thing. I mean, the world could do the same thing to you guys and to everybody else, you know?
That's a lot of information. That's a whole information download there. One of the things that stuck out to me is the cooperation with the American government, because if you look at historically, the American government has screwed over Colombia, whether it's the deal with Panama and Panama's independence, whether it's the Banana Corporation assassinating people who wanted to unionize here. Also with the CIA and the drug trafficking that they were a major part of, that a lot of people don't want to even mention, but a big hand in that was the CIA. So looking into the future, how do you see life here under the new president? How do you see everything going politically and economically for Bogota?
Okay, well, the thing with that would be that, yes, we do have a connection with the United States because it's vital, right? I mean, you guys provide the money for the drug warfare, right? But we all know that hasn't worked out for anything, right? Not on your side, not on our side either, because there's been a lot of deaths, there's been everything, and nothing's going down. Because if you see right now today the statistics of how much, like, for example, cocaine is being exported from Colombia, it's the same amount that back in the 80s, right? And you have to understand that if you have tons of cocaine coming into your country, that's got to do with the CIA as well. Yeah. That's the nexus between it, because you guys let it happen, but we cultivate it. So it's like, who's the best market for this particular type of drug? Well, it's the United States, right? And there's people that are capitalizing on this. Turns out that in today's age, the drug trafficker that you would think that it is actually is in the government instead of being out on the streets, you know? So I believe that for now, I mean, we do need to have this kind of like symbiotic relationship where it is like we're trying to do this win-win thing, but of course it's never win-win, right? And you have to understand that it's not only happened in Colombia per se, but in the whole South America. You look at Chile, you look at Argentina. They have been somewhat like permeated by the CIA to rogue governments that had to do with socialist sides, because of course Cuba, you know, Cuba being South American with the whole Cuban Missile Crisis and whatever, right? What happened was that, of course, we all got stigmatized because we're all South America, right? we, in a sense, we are like, we have this raging capitalism going on right now, where it is like Colombia became like the wild, wild west, because you can find anything here, right? If you have 2 bits of intelligence, you would understand that cocaine, for example, ain't nothing compared to oil, compared to emeralds, compared to natural resources. That is something that we should start to export, but under our terms. Instead of selling you guys, like for example, the oil or the petroleum or whatever, we should sell you the gasoline without going through any intermediaries, like what happens in the Midwest, in the Middle East, Like, for example, those guys, they nationalize their petroleum production and they sell it to the U.S. at a price that it's a very hefty price that at the end of the day, you guys need to pay. Right? Everybody needs to pay a price. The thing is that, of course, and you've said it, historically we've been screwed over, right? And I'm thinking that it's going to be a little bit more of the same until we really, really, really get fed up, because we're right now at that boiling point, you know? And it's going to be a social revolution, which I'm hoping for, and I'm going to be a part of it too, because we need to, first of all, as Colombians, we need to value what's ours, and we need to give it value the value has been given to us, and we have to find our own value so that then we can put the price on it. That's the thing.
Do a lot of people here share your sentiment? Do you think it's possible?
Oh yes, there's a bunch of people that share the sentiment. I mean, for example, we don't understand how this president got into office. We really don't know, because everybody that you talk to, they voted for the other guy. So we do know that there's something going on that's, of course, it's fishy. We can't prove it. And even so, if we could prove it, at the end of the day, we're right now like in the middle of this thing with Venezuela, for example. And we're going to need the support of the United States, because Russia is supporting the Venezuelan people, right? So if they come to like our borders and they just want to destroy things, they can, because they have the tanks, they have the warfare, they have the guns, they have everything, right? In Colombia, we dedicated ourselves to guerrilla warfare. So it's more like one-on-one instead of like army versus army. So in that case, we would need a strategic ally, which we're kind of sorry that it would be Mr. Trump, because I don't like to call him President Trump, because I think that in the States it happened the same thing that happened here. Like a minority put a president up there that nobody really actually wanted, right? And this guy is doing a bunch of things that are not in our way of viewing things, right? We're not racist people, we're not intolerant people, but that has been founded upon us just so that they can install fear, and with fear they control us. But that's the thing, Colombians don't have fear, and we'll stand up to whatever it takes because we know what we're worth.
Wow, thank you so much for that download. And Colombia is very open, and it's becoming more of an accepting society. They're also more accepting of the LGBTQ community more than any other South American country here. So it's been fascinating to see its development. Thank you so much for the download of information of how you see things higher. And anything else you'd like to say or promote, or where people could find you?
Well, no, yeah. I mean, I'm a tour guide. I didn't tell you that, though. I'm a tour guide on my days off. So if you wanted to contact me, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Ricardo Jose Torres. Richard Joseph Towers would be my name. To all of you, say hi, peace, and have a good one. Come to Colombia.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.